Well, hello, everyone, especially those of you who have followed Josh Anderson art for the actual art. I have to apologize. I've been haven't had a lot of art going on in a while on the channel. I've been using it mainly to read the Bible every day, just because that is a thing I do every day. I do art every day, but not drawings that I actually can video like this. So I'm trying to get a good camera angle here. It's just really hard. Trying to set this all up on my. Get some real white balance going on here. Sorry about that. We'll get this. We'll get it. Just to explain this piece, as it says in the description, I'm working on a series of activity sheets for our children's ministry. So you're just your basic. This camera is just really not doing good with that lighting. So this is like your basic word scramble, and I'm just making all these up as we go. This one's just a coloring sheet, and this series that they're doing is called Live Like Jesus, and it's a class to teaching kids the fruits of the Spirit. So that's just a little coloring sheet I did the other day. And so today I'm working on this. It's one of those find its, and so the picture, I'm really sorry about this camera. It's really hard to get in a good position. Kindness is the theme of this one, and it's going to be a find it. And so like there's little hidden things like a baseball, and over there's a kite. There's going to be a baseball bat hidden right in the sidewalk there, like a fish in grandma's sleeve, apple in her hair. So the way I do these is I sketch them out in pencil first. I know I'm really old school compared to where everyone's going these days with art. Like almost everyone is drawing on tablets and doing digital painting and stuff. And I'm partly because I can't afford a good iPad and pencil and the software and everything, but partly because this is how I grew up drawing, and I still love the feel of real paper. And I know, like, I'm not a stickler. Like I would gladly do digital art if I could afford it right now. But there's always a scanner, and there's always your hand-drawn stuff that we can still do. The last time I did any art live on this channel, I was working through a series of cartoon characters from my childhood, just ones that reminded me, or ones that me and my brother used to watch. I did that whole series. That was really fun. More or less exhausted the shows that we watched, and then haven't really gotten back to the live drawings in a while. The way this is like I said, I sketch it out in pencil, get it how I want it, go back and trace it over with some kind of ink. I am really just still searching and trying to find the best kinds of pens and stuff. Like I have gone through, gosh, who knows how many pens and different styles and thicknesses and different kinds of inks, and I still haven't really found one that I would probably say is my favorite to stick with. Like the problem is that every time I find a pen that I just pretty much fall in love with, I think this is going to be my pen that I'm always going to use for this thing. Like they they run out of ink, and then I can't find that pen again, or I find another pen that I'm like, oh, I actually like this one more. These live drawing series, I've actually been using just your super cheap Papermate felt tip markers, and it's kind of surprising how much I like these. Partly because they're cheap, and it's like you never feel like Like with expensive pens, you always feel like, "Oh, I better not like use too much ink or whatever." But when it's a cheap pen, you really feel like you can just get in there and get the work done and not worry about it. And just when this one starts getting dry, you just break out another one. Cheapness has a lot to do with that. And then like these Papermate pens, they actually offer a lot of versatility in the line weight that you wouldn't kind of expect. Like it's like one of my favorite pens used to always be the Uniball Fine gel pen, but they're only good for really fine lines. And it's like when you go to do sculpted line work and stuff, they're not as good for that. Part of doing work the old school way is like you really are kind of, there's no undo button. And so like when you lay down that black, you can't go back. So you got to be a little more sure about your lines and a little more forgiving of yourself if there's screw ups or uh, lines going in places that you didn't really want. I mean, there's always Photoshop in the end. When I get this done, I erase the pencil out. My process is to go into Photoshop, and then mess with the levels to get some really good contrast. So I don't think most people realize how much color is in it. Like if I scan this, there's a lot of color in it actually. Kind of a range of colors that you don't really see with the naked eye. When you scan it, it picks it all up. And then when you want to contrast it more, if you don't first convert it or like drop the saturation down to nothing, um, all the like when you actually start to punch up the levels, it actually brings color out. So your first step is to go in and drop saturation down to make it just black and just white, so it's completely contrasted. So at that point, when we're in Photoshop, then we can erase and like if there's some really bad screw ups, right? I will inevitably go too thick of a line or go through something. Or some days it's just like I've had enough coffee or something, and hands are shaky, or I've had too much coffee. My hands are shaky. Lines aren't as nice smooth as I like them to be. As you can see, this drawing was already in progress when we started. It's one of the good things about a sketchbook and stuff. Like with the computer I work on at work is an iMac, and it's a pretty nice one. It's getting a little older now, but it's a 2015 like 27-inch screen. The hard thing about having a big screen like that and a really nice setup is if I need to work from home, it's a real pain to pack it all up. And so, like the last few days, just my wife's had some appointments, and I've needed to watch the kids, but I also try to work too. I don't complain too much because I know a lot of people don't have this versatility in their work. But so I went home, watched the kids for her, but still clocked in. So like I could work on this drawing. Since I have a sketchbook at home, I can just draw it. So yeah, so yesterday I started this. And I have my perspective right, but it's I'll just say it's a curved road. Roads do that. They have a crown in the middle, so drains off the side. And in case you're thinking, this was really easy to find all these objects in there, well, this is made for first and second graders, so I don't know. Maybe it's too easy for them. It's one of the challenges of these activities is trying to get them to match the abilities of the ages they're aimed for. And like one of the first ones I did was a matching sheet, and they kind of tested it out on some kids, and it turns out it was way too easy. I don't know, like maybe this is too easy for first and second graders. I need to erase that line right there. All right, so we've got the basic stuff. So there's a pizza right there, a baseball bat, a baseball, ice cream, kite, fish, an apple, kind of the word kindness, a banana, a little hard to see, a key. So one last thing I like to do, like my process of inking is I first of all go in with just the basic one weight of line, like I just did here, just with the pen straight up, and then I really like this the look of what we call sculpted lines, and so I'm going to go over just on the outside and give kind of a thick line, but kind of bring it from inside to out, if that makes sense. Like, see how I just did with her hair? So it's thin right there, and then it gets thick, and that's what these surprisingly medium weight flare Papermate pens can do pretty good at. Like, you can really press down to get that thick outside line, and then lift up to let it be thin on the insides. And like I say, I've worked with lots of different pens, some really cool Japanese pens that people use for manga and stuff. And I have a set at home right now. I think they're Zebra. I can't remember the brand. It's something like that. They're ones they're really, they get a high rating. Lots of artists use them. I've been using them, and they've been doing pretty well. But then, like the set I have, like all of a sudden it started drying. One of the thin versions started to dry up, and it's like I can't even remember where I bought those. I mean, I'm sure I got them on Amazon, but it's like, what did I search? I guess I can look at my Amazon history, but it's just not as easy as ordering a big old box of these cheap pens. A lot of times, like, you can tell ink quality and stuff. Like, a lot of brush pens have really good India ink in them. You can tell by that blackness when you're inking and stuff, and like you can tell, like, the difference. And like Sharpie is not near as good as like India ink. That's the good thing too about once you scan something and get it in Photoshop, you drop that your levels, and it doesn't matter then, because black is black. Trying to show here just an illustration of kindness. So it's a little girl helping her grandma across the street. That's one thing about illustrating, is trying to think of the best way to show concepts and stuff. And like, so this series they're going through is the fruits of the spirit, and I really like our children's like girl. Like, she's really trying not to do actual fruit. Like, if you are in church circles, especially with kids, like you'll see that like every time anybody does a lesson on the fruits of the spirit, they always use like literal fruit. That's kind of the first thing you think of, right? Like when someone says fruit, and it's like, oh, this is fun. Like, we can do apples, oranges, and peaches. But her point was, is like, that's That's not really what it's talking about. Like, sure, it's kind of a metaphor, but what happens is when you teach that to kids, it kind of becomes almost literal to them, to where they always associate that verse with literal fruit. And once I got to thinking, I'm like, yeah, that even is me. Like, just growing up in the church and stuff, like you always talk about literal fruit, and it kind of makes you forget that what we're talking about is the metaphor of what, when you have the Holy Spirit in you, it manifests itself in ways, in these quote fruits: love, joy, peace, patience. These are kind of evidences of the Holy Spirit in you. In real life, they don't have anything to do with actual fruit. It's great stuff for our kids to learn about, because the Christian life is about letting the Holy Spirit work through you, and not, you don't do things on your own. Spirit works through you. It's kind of a hard concept to get, and I think a lot of us, even adults, have a hard time with that. Like, you become a Christian, you think, I've got to be good, I've got to be patient, I've got to be good, and all of these things, and you try to do it on your own, and like we make a mess of it when we try to do stuff without the Holy Spirit working it through us. It's actually one thing, like, if you ever see my testimony video that's on this channel, I talk about how that kind of concept was actually sort of a hindrance in my Christian life, because I grew up, you know, I asked Jesus to be my Lord when I was 4 years old. And so, like, at that point, the Holy Spirit begins to guide my life, as much as I allow Him, as much as I try to let Him be the guide of my life. And so throughout my life, I've seen these fruits. I've been a gentle person. I've been a kind person. I've been mostly good. And it's those times when I'm letting God work through me. But the hard thing is I didn't always give God the credit. And so I would always kind of think, yeah, I'm a good person, whatever. But like, really, that's not me. Like, my nature is sinful. I was born into this world as a sinner. And wherever there's goodness, that's the Holy Spirit working through me. So I don't get the credit. Especially like if you're a non-believer and you think Christians are just kind of full of themselves, like they think they're so good. We're not. That's a misunderstanding too, is that Christians are supposed to be better than other people, and really it's only when they're allowing the Holy Spirit to work through them that they actually exhibit these fruits of the Spirit. So like if you're ever driving down the road and you see in front of you a Christian bumper stickers all over a car, but they're like cutting you off, and you're just kind of like, what the heck? Like, what are these Christians about? Just remember, they're human just like you, with a sin nature just like you. And that sin nature is always trying to get them, pull them back to do things that are wrong, or pull them back into evil. So I hear this kind of misunderstanding a lot, like, call yourself a Christian and you're no better than anybody else. It's true. Like, on our own, we're not. What you're seeing is actually a person who's just not attentive to the Spirit. It's not that Christianity is invalid. It's the humans that are Christians. Give this a little more texture and stuff. I think this is about it. I could put a lot more detail and stuff into it, but I think for the age range that we're looking at here, and I also have to do 14 of these. It's a 2 week or 14 night class, and they want 14 days, and they want 2 activities per day. And I am a little over halfway done, so got to get these things done. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.